Welcome to Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, your guide to mastering the realm of real estate in Central East Florida. I am Sir Lancelot Leonard, ready to uncover the secrets of seller strategies, home staging, mortgage mastery, and more. From Daytona Beach to Cocoa Beach, Lake County to St. Augustine, join me as we navigate the intricacies of real estate. As the leader of the Sir Lancelot Group at Florida Homes Realty and Mortgage, I'm here to arm you with knowledge and innovation, whether you're a seasoned homeowner or a first-time buyer, unveiling the kingdom of real estate, one roundtable at a time. Welcome to the Real Estate Roundtable, where we bring you the heavy hitters, the industry insiders, and the voices that move markets. Today's guest is a triple threat attorney, real estate broker, and investor. When it comes to protecting your profits, minimizing liability, and structuring deals the smart way, this is the guy you want to have in your corner. From land trust to creative financing, he's not just talking theory, he's living it every day. Get ready for a masterclass in real estate law and wealth protection with the founder of Legacy Legal, Bishoy Habib. Bishoy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lancelot. Appreciate you.
It's awesome. Hey, Bishoy, let's rewind. What inspired you to pursue not just law, but also real estate and investing?
I was kind of born into it. You know, that's what I always tell people so I'm a real estate attorney. I'm a real estate broker. I'm a real estate investor. And, you know, my dad was also a real estate investor. He came here back in the 80s or 70s, actually. He didn't know what real estate was. He had his own, he was a pharmacist. He was doing that. He was doing well with that. But he also took a look around and realized real estate was the way to prosperity in this country. And that's what everyone smart was doing. And so he figured out how to do it, started doing it, was buying up foreclosures on the steps of the courthouse back before that was in vogue. And, you know, that's what I was born into and saw that as a kid. And I thought that was cool. And, you know, I really remember him driving me around to his properties as a kid. And I remember thinking, man, this is cool. He doesn't have a boss. You know, that was my favorite thing about it. And so my mom she was a dentist for 30 plus years. She had her own practice, but you know, as a dentist, it's not a bad living. It's a great living, but you're still kind of a slave to your office. You know, you either make money because you go work or you don't, right? At least back in those days when it was less of a business and more of a career, right? Now you have private equity buying dental offices, but that's a different conversation. So, I just thought it was cool. I was like, you know, it's independence and you create your own schedule and do your own thing. So anyways, I always knew I was going to end up in it. So I went to law school, kind of didn't really plan to practice law, just wanted the degree, got my law degree, got my MBA at the same time. And, you know, from Stetson. And I was like, well, let me go out and get a real estate job. Well, this was 2012. There were no real estate jobs. We didn't know it at the time, but we had hit the bottom of the market. And obviously, it's been a 15-year bull run or 13-year bull run since then, right? No signs of slowdown except 2 months during COVID here in Florida. And so I slowly just started working as an attorney. First job was in New York as a real estate attorney doing big hotel deals with Sam Chang, the largest hotel developer in Manhattan's history. He's built over 100 hotels. We were a part of many of those back in 2013 to 15. Actually, all of the ones in that time period when I was up there, we were involved in. Amazing experience from a kid, a 22-year-old kid from Florida, Orlando, Florida. We didn't have deals like that in Orlando very often back in the day. And so I was very, it left an impression on me. And also New York taught me how to work hard. You know, 40 hours a week in New York is like you're behind everyone else. You got to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And so that work ethic was developed up there. After 2 years up there, I made the decision to come back for family reasons. Just my mom was sick. I wanted to be with her. And so anyways, I've just kind of been doing that since on the attorney side. And 2 years ago, I decided to open up my own law firm. Within a month, I realized it was the best decision I ever made in my life. It's like a full circle moment. I now have that full freedom as an attorney. And I'm now hiring attorneys and hiring paralegals and, you know, the whole thing. So as far as the firm and what I do, because of my background, I've always been investor friendly. I've always been responsive with my clients because deals are time sensitive, and I've always been trustworthy with my clients. And those are the three most important things that I harp to my clients and pitch myself on, because the biggest three complaints you hear about any attorney is what? I can't get a hold of them, number one. Number two, they're killing my deal because it's like a family law attorney and they don't know what's what and they don't know what risk is. And so, and number three, they're charging me too much, right? And so trustworthy means, we try to flat fee when we can, we're transparent when we can, and we do what's in your best interest. Responsive, you need something done tomorrow, I'll get it done tomorrow. There's going to be a price to pay, but I'll get it done for you tomorrow. And then just deal friendly, where it's like, look, I'm an investor. I know how to do these creative deals. You need to do a sub two, I'll do the sub two. Some attorneys are like, well, you can't do the sub two because it violates the covenants of the mortgage. It's like, well, you take your chances, right? And if you get called, you get called. But here's the best way to circumvent that and to mitigate the risk of the loan being called due. And so, it's just these different things that you have to be entrepreneurial, and you have to have an attorney. If you're entrepreneurial, you need an attorney on your side who's entrepreneurial, and we can mitigate your risk while maximizing your profits. And that's really what I do best.
Oh, that's amazing, my friend. I think that's great. My biggest fears when I get New Yorkers coming down and buying houses here, and they're like, "So should I get an attorney?" I said, "Well, you're really welcome to. We don't really use attorneys all the time, but if you feel like you really need an attorney for $250,000 purchase, you're more than welcome to pay, the exuberant fees, for them to look over the contract, cross out a bunch of stuff, and then the other people say, nah, I'm not good with that, and you know, you know what I'm saying.
I got a ton of those clients during COVID when all those people were moving here, the Illinois, the New York, the Pennsylvania, the New Jersey. I got a bunch of clients, attorney states. I got a bunch of clients from the attorney states during COVID, and and I just charge on the residential stuff, because the commercial, you need attorneys on every deal. Residential, not necessarily, unless it's like a creative or an investment. And so I charged them a flat fee, and they loved it. They're like, wow, this is so cheap compared to what I pay up north. I'm like, don't worry about it. But all these people were paying cash and they had money. And the craziest thing, I had one guy who was younger than me, because I saw his ID. I never met him. He was closing on a property, $6 million cash during COVID.
Wow.
Cash. He was 27 or 28 at the time.
Bitcoin.
He never saw the property. His agent did an iPad walkthrough and an iPad showing, and he bought it $6 million cash. And I'm like, I don't know what I did wrong, but
yeah, where did we go wrong? Yeah, we didn't buy Bitcoin at a penny.
He was a good client. I think I charged him $1,500 or something, and I saw what he was buying, and I'm like, I could have charged him $20,000. He wouldn't have flinched, but
no.
But I did good work. I made sure everything looked good and was clean and stuff like that. So,
as long as you keep it, equal, I think it's fair. So,
100%.
Was there a pivotal moment when you realized this blend of roles gave you and your clients a major advantage, being a broker and an attorney and an investor?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I haven't been asked that specific question, but there's definitely an epiphany when, you're just kind of doing it, and then one day you realize how much value you're bringing to people, especially people in a certain, when you kind of niche down in a sense, which is obviously part of what I've done recently, is like, I'm not doing everything to everyone anymore. It's like kind of niche down. And so when I have clients who don't know where to turn or don't know what to do, or don't know how to handle something, and for me, it's like, oh, well, this is easy. You just do this, and this, right? And it's like, well, what do you mean? How do you do that? And then you're like, okay, but then you start helping them over and over, different clients. And so suddenly you realize, wow, I'm really adding value to these people's lives or careers or financial investments. So I think I caught on to that about probably about 3 or 4 years ago, was when I started really feeling like, oh man, maybe 5 years ago now, I started feeling like, wow, like I'm really good at my job, and it takes a while to get to that point. The other aspect of it, or the other epiphany moment, was I walk into these investor clubs and investor meetings locally. And like in Orlando, it's CFRI. Here it's REIA. But they're all over the state. And every time I walk into them, like, everybody wants to talk, and everybody has questions, and everybody wants to know more, and everybody wants to set up appointments. And it's like, it's a good feeling, but the best feeling is knowing I'm helping people and that I could add a lot of value. And so I'm like, wow, like these are the same rooms. I mean, literally some of these are the same rooms and the same people. My dad would take me to these meetings when I was 8 years old and 10 years old. And I didn't know what I was bored at the time, but he was planting the seeds. And so now I'm speaking at these events, right? And now I'm giving, the presentations and, keynoting them, and it's a full circle moment, but it's very rewarding to know that that's kind of how I'm able to help people.
That's great. I mean, it feels good, you know. Tell us about a deal where your legal background made a difference. Maybe even saved someone from a major loss.
I had a situation where I have a lot of investors that are buying creative deals, right? Like that's one of my subspecialties because not I don't want to say 9 out of 10. I want to say 98 out of 100 attorneys don't have any idea how to do creative deals, and they don't know what goes into them. They don't understand the risks, all that. So I have clients who buy stuff in foreclosure, and what will happen is they'll basically take a deed in lieu right before foreclosure, and then they'll figure out the liens, right? And they'll maybe it's a short sale, maybe it's something where they reinstate the mortgage, whatever it is. We had one where, and you're taking on some risk. It's a lot of due diligence on the front end, but you're usually walking in with good equity. Could be 6 figures in equity, right? If you play it right. So we had one where it was that exact scenario, and they found a buyer, and they were 6 figures in equity once the numbers fell into place. I think they were going to pay off the lender, but there was a lien on the property, and it was like a $42,000 lien on the property,
Mhm.
for solar stuff. And well, the first lien was going to foreclose, right? And so he was just going to pay the $42,000, like the payoff, to the solar guys. And I said, well, and he was still going to be okay with that return. I said, well, before you do that, why don't you let me try to work on this? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just give me the ball and get out of the way, right? Is what I say, because I play basketball.
Yeah.
So I said, get out of the way. So he said, okay. So I call solar and I said, this property's in, I represent so and so, this property's in foreclosure, right? He said, no, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, here's the information. Take a look and let me know. So he looks it up. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. I said, yes. So you're going to get foreclosed on. You're going to get wiped out. Alternatively, if you want, we'd be willing to pay you $1,000 to release this lien. And we ended up he wasn't happy with the phone call. We ended up negotiating, and I ended up getting it released for $5,000 under the threat of being foreclosed. And so in that moment, I saved my client almost $40,000 with a single phone call. And so, I joked with him. I said, if you did my per hour, I should be making like $80,000 an hour at this rate, right? So that's just my value. I'm just telling you what I'm worth. So he was pretty happy about that.
I mean, that's amazing that you got that $42,000 solar. I mean, I know it's probably not even worth 42. It's probably worth like half of that, but for $5,000, that's a good deal, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, but you don't have an attorney on your side there. You don't know what you're looking for. You don't even know how to clear it. You don't know your rights. And most importantly, you don't know what leverage you have. And my favorite thing to say, life is about leverage, right? Whoever has the leverage is going to win the deal. If you're getting foreclosed on and you don't know, this guy didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, and it's not his, I wasn't going to tell him what was happening, that we were actually going to pay him off, right? Why would I tell him that? So, it gives you a leg up. It gives you an advantage when you have a sharp real estate attorney on your side.
Well, for sure. I give you that. You just have to have a sharp one that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
uh, what are the biggest legal blind spots investors have when structuring their deals?
Amazing question. So it depends where you are in your life cycle. So let's say you're a beginning investor. Setting up your entity and setting up your business is a big misstep that I see when you first start off, right? And honestly, there's still savvy investors who screw this up too. But on the front end, you want to make sure you're protected. You want to make sure your assets are protected. You want to make sure your personal name is not on anything it shouldn't be on. You want to make yourself untraceable to the extent possible. And you want to mitigate your risk and separate your personal assets from your business assets. And so all of that, if you don't understand what it means, form an LLC that only does one thing, right? Don't do 10 different things with one LLC. Don't buy real estate in your personal name unless it's your homestead in Florida. That's okay. If it's not your homestead in Florida, do not ever buy real estate in your personal name. There's not very many things as attorneys that we say are definitive, but that's one of them. I do not recommend doing that. Okay. Best way to do it is a land trust, a Florida land trust. I do those all day. I'm writing a book on them now. Best way to hold real estate in Florida. If you cannot do a land trust because your lender won't allow it, and I would say 8 out of 10, I would say half lenders like it, half lenders don't because they don't understand it, then use an LLC. And just in the simplest way, let's just keep it elementary for the new investors here. Just form a Florida LLC and buy real estate in that, right? Don't buy 5 properties with the same LLC, because if one person slips and falls in one, they could sue the LLC for all 5 properties or the equity in all 5 properties. That's on a beginner level. Let's just call it phase 1 of the, phase 2, we could get more complicated. I'm not going to go into it on this podcast, but then we could have holding companies based in Wyoming. We involve trusts. We could go to the Cook Islands if you want. That's a much different level. Okay. Another thing when you're investing and partnering is making sure everything is papered up properly, and making sure if you have like a partner or if it's a joint venture, put as much information and details as possible. The more the merrier. And the worst mistake I see is, obviously, if you just have a handshake agreement or you don't have a written agreement, that's a terrible idea. It doesn't matter if it's your brother, doesn't matter if it's your best friend, doesn't matter if it's your wife. I mean, spouse is probably the one exception where I get, but other than a spouse, put it in writing. Because what happens is the deal looks good, everyone's happy on the front end, nobody sees the blind spots, and then things go sideways. And I'm seeing today in my practice the most level of distress, foreclosure, defaults I've ever seen, because all those people who were investing in 21 and 22 and 23, when the market was, oh, we're going to see 20-30% increases a year, and all these people from New York are going to keep coming down, it's all falling apart now, right? All those people are going back up to New York. The prices are coming back to a good level. It's a correction, and it's a good correction that we needed. And we're not seeing the crazy appreciation that was never sustainable to begin with. And so make sure it's all papered up. If one person's coming with the money and one person's coming with the the day-to-day management, paper that up, put that in there. Partner X is going to do day-to-day management, is going to do, the repair, the renovation, whatever. Partner B is going to do the money and make sure that, blah, 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 blah. The other thing, if you're going to be a money person, make sure that if you're going in with a partner who's going to do all the work, make sure that you still have control of what's going on. Make sure that if XYZ is not fulfilled by XYZ date, I, as the money guy, have the right to take full control of the asset and do what I need to do, or hand it off to somebody else. And that's something you almost never see. But I get a lot of the money guys who come to me and say, how do I protect myself? And that's the thing I tell them is, you need to do this. Now, the money guy doesn't want to take over the asset. They don't.
No.
So we're going to give leeway to the management, as long as they're working in good faith, to do this. But we're going to give you time frames, but they got to be generous and fair. We're not like, 30 days to do a full rehab, but we'll give you some time. And, it just ends up working out better. And at the end of the day, people work better, and people work in good faith more often if there's bite, not just bark. So, and what does that mean in English? It means if you have a piece of paper, like a contract that says you are liable if you don't do X, Y, Z, I could sue you if you don't do X, Y, Z, people act better. It's the same reason if you're going to lend, I do a ton of lender representation. If you're going to lend money, make sure you get a personal guarantee from that person, right? Because the asset might lose value. The personal and the mortgage is the most important thing, but the personal guarantee keeps people in behaving good. That's what I like to say. And we're suing on some personal guarantees now because the properties have dropped 30 and 40% since they lent the money in 21. And so there's not enough equity in it. So now they're going after the personal guarantors. And so that's another tip for my lenders out there. And I got plenty of tips for the lenders. If you're a lender, hit me up. I got you all day. I love working with lenders. So, and you don't ever have to pay my fees. That's the best part. If you're a lender, you don't ever have to pay me $1 because your borrower does. So, those are some tips and some things that I see a lot of.
Cool. That is a lot of information. You talk a lot about, land trust and creative financing. How do those two tools work together, and why do so few people use them the right way?
So few people use land trust because they don't understand them. And for some reason, and I understand why, but the word trust is scary to people in the sense of like a trust, a revocable trust, a land trust. It's because it's a little bit more convoluted. It's not as straightforward as my name or my LLC that I own 100%. It's a tri-party. So there's grantor, beneficiary, and the trustee. And really the grantor is just in a revocable trust, in a land trust, doesn't even matter. It's the beneficiary and the trustee. you shouldn't have them be the same person if you do it the right way to protect your privacy. I'll give my spiel, my 30-second pitch on land trust. Why are they so great? Land trust in the state of Florida, we are the only state in the entire country that has the full benefits that I'm going to explain. Number one, privacy. Okay. You can't shoot what you can't see. So if you own property in your personal name and you get, or even if you own it in an LLC in Florida, it's sunshine laws. Everybody can look up what you own in half a second, right? I look up Sunbiz. It's on sunbiz.org if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm on Sunbiz 10 times a day looking up assets, entities, people, whatever. Like, who is this person? What do they own? It's super easy. There's no such thing as a land trust. You cannot see what other people own. So if you are an investor and let's just say you have a kid and they drive your car and they get in a car accident, the first thing that other person is doing is, if they hire an attorney, that attorney is going to search who owns the car and what do they own. So they're going to see Lancelot Leonard. They're going to search your name in Sunbiz. They're going to see, and in the public records, the official records where the properties are. So they're going to see Lancelot Leonard owns 4 rental properties in Daytona, and he owns 3 cars, and he owns 4 LLCs, and they could track it all back. They could hire a PI to see what else you're doing. If you have stuff in a land trust, they never get to that step because they can never see the real estate you own, right? So it stops right there. When they see that you have 5, 6, 10, 20 property, even 2 properties, they're going to say, this guy's got money. We're not settling for policy terms. We're going to go above and beyond. If they see that you don't have anything, if you look broke, why the hell would the attorney care? The attorney is not going to pursue you if the client's not going to make money, because then he doesn't get paid. So that's a long way of saying anonymity is extremely important. Number 2, and this is the most important part about the Florida Land Trust, asset protection, limited liability. What that means, if someone slips and falls in your property and it's owned in a land trust, not a living trust, but only in a land trust, they cannot sue you personally as the beneficiary. They can only sue the land trust. The same way that if you hold property in an LLC, they can only sue the LLC. Florida is the only state that has that benefit. And this is statutory. This is by law. This is not my imagination. This is not even court cases. This is the highest level of assurance. Third of all, you get to avoid probate. So, Lancelot, you mentioned you had a kid, a 6-year-old. So you can leave your properties. When we set up our land trust with you, you set up so that the successor beneficiary is your child, or if you have more children now. And so that's how that would go. And you don't have to go to probate. You don't have to pay an attorney. You don't have to go to court. There's no fees. You show a death certificate and it goes automatically to them. And that saves you tons of money and time. Probate is a painful, expensive, and time-consuming process. It could take over a year. It could take 2 years. Depends how much assets you have. Why go through that if you can just do it all through a land trust and it all gets passed automatically? Those are the 3 big benefits. There are many more smaller benefits, one of which is creative financing, in which we can structure deals very creatively within the land trust. And that's the advantage of using land trusts.
And using the financing within the land trust, you could get tax benefits out of that, lending money to XYZ within the trust, correct?
Yes.
I interviewed a guy about that. He does this special, instead of a 1031 exchange, they do a trust that holds the asset, and you take the liability off you for the capital gains and everything, and they still pay you an X amount of percentage back from the thing, and you don't have hands-on either. So, you're not managing the property anymore. They're managing the property for you. It's pretty cool.
Right.
I think that could be, you guys should meet, by the way. Yeah, I interviewed him a couple years ago. Yeah. You guys would be really good friends. So you recommend a living trust owning the land trust?
Oh, inside the land trust?
Yeah. Like above the land trust, another family trust that you would have for other assets like gold and silver and stocks, et cetera, is in the main trust, and then that main trust owns the smaller trusts, because you mentioned every property should have their own trust, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So would you structure it like that? So instead of, hey, Lancelot Leonard absolutely owns nothing, everything's owned by the living trust, and the living trust owns the land trusts as well as stocks and bonds and whatnot.
So that's an absolutely fair way to do it, and I think that's fine. So what you're saying is, who would be the beneficiary of the land trust? And you're saying, could you make the living trust the beneficiary of the land trust? The answer is absolutely, you can. depending on your situation, depending on how active you are, you may put a holding company in the middle and sandwiched in between so that there's a holding company and then there's the living trust underneath the holding company. There's tax benefits to doing it that way. There's liability protections in doing it that way. So every situation is different, but that's a good way to do it. Or either ways, it could be a good fit.
That's awesome. We'll need to talk after this too.
Yeah.
When a
100%.
client comes to you, what's the first thing you're looking to protect or optimize?
Great question. You got some good questions, man. I do a lot of these interviews and podcasts, and some of the questions are not that great. These are all really good questions.
Thank you.
So, um, it depends on the client. So I have clients who are 25 years old and they've just gotten into wholesaling for the first time and they're super aggressive. And so for them, it's, we want to draft these agreements so that they're very favorable, like the wholesale contracts, so that they're super favorable to you. And so that's really the biggest thing. Do we want to mitigate their risk and their liability? Yeah, but they have no liability because they have no assets. Like they're not, there's not much to protect. I could get a 65-year-old gentleman or woman and they have a 300 property portfolio. And now all of a sudden we're not as concerned about being aggressive and trying to do a flip for $20,000 or a wholesale for $20,000, but we're trying to figure out, how to protect these assets, how to pass them along to their kids, how to make sure that nobody can see them, right? So it's a very different thing. So it's just like investing, right? It's the same thing from the legal perspective. You're going to be much more aggressive when you're younger. You're going to be much more conservative when you're older. And what you need really depends on what phase you're in your investment cycle. That's why my tagline is maximize profits, limit liability, repeat, right? So you could be, hopefully we do both, but some people are more concerned about profits. Some people are more concerned about liability, and generally everyone's concerned about both, but you may be at a different point in your cycle.
Your cycle. Yeah. I like how you talk about cycles. Like, probably a Tony Robbins fan.
I love Tony Robbins. I love him.
He talks a lot about your life cycles.
Yeah.
I've done all of his courses, basically. I went to all of
Oh,
them.
I love Tony Robbins, man. I was listening to it this morning. He's like, I wasn't listening to that one, but I know it's like the winter, you're born, and then like the spring, you're growing up, and the summer is like and then the fall is like when you get older.
When you reap in your benefits. Yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah. He's good. He's the best.
I love him too. He taught me a lot. First time I realized that bartending's not for me was when I read the Money Master Game book from him, and I was like, "Holy!"
Yeah, I got it right there. I got all his books right there.
I have him there too, not right behind me, but in my other cabinet right there. I have all of his books. Read them, listened to them multiple times. It's just incredible. Next question is: how does your experience as a broker and an investor shape your legal strategy when you talk to these guys?
When I talk to my clients?
Yes. Or yours. Actually, I'm more interested in your strategies than your client strategies. Because how does it shape it? Like how do you do it?
As an investor?
Yeah.
I'm always trying to adapt and kind of find some sort of an edge. But it's really nice now that I'm 13 years out of law school and practicing 13 years and have the experience that I have the contacts that I have the network that I have. And so it definitely gives me a leg up. I'm still learning every day as well. There's people way smarter than me on the investment side. So look, last year, my partners and we did 45 deals, which isn't a lot, but it's like a part-time thing for me because I'm doing the law firm is my baby. That's where I spend 80% of my time. So, we did novations, we did flips, we did short sales, we did wholesales, so we've kind of, we did Section 8s, we did buy and hold. So we did a lot, we learned a lot. I'm probably changing my strategy a little bit this year just for personal reasons. But I would say, to answer your question, it helps quite a bit to be able to say, well, I know how this transaction works because I've done this transaction. I know what you're supposed to be looking out for. I know what can go wrong. Here's a good contact for X, Y, and Z. So I mean, it's like you want to go to somebody who's been there and done that. You don't want to go to somebody who's, has no idea what you're talking about.
That's what I always say. Before I bought my first house, I was like, I don't even know why people hire me as a realtor. I've never done this myself, But after I got my
Yeah.
first and the second one and the investment property, et cetera, I went through it like 4 or 5 times myself. I was like, guys, you want to hire a guy straight out of real estate school, 25 years old, never bought a house, or you want a guy that actually done this a few times?
Yep.
It just makes a totally different ballgame when you actually know how everything goes down. And in your case, you just mentioned like 5, 6 different types of deals. Like that's a lot. I have Section 8. I have I've done quite a few of those. I haven't done all of them, but it is good to have all that knowledge. Um, when is it smart to hire, an outside counsel? I know you're going to say it's always smart. How do you help clients choose the right fit for an outside counsel? I'm sure you're the right fit for most aspects of real estate, but
I'm not the right fit for everyone. I've started to, I've fired clients recently because they just didn't fit with what I was trying to do or my style. And that could be because they're extremely rude to me or my staff. That could be because their expectations and mine don't align. And I say that not like proud because I'm cool. It's like, not everybody's not for everybody, and that's okay. And like, I've come to a point I've matured to the point of my business career and my legal career where I can acknowledge and accept I'm not a good fit for everyone. I am, like I told you, I'm very responsive. I'm very deal friendly. I'm very good at what I do. I don't claim to be the cheapest. I'm not the most expensive. There's firms way more expensive than me. I'm just saying, people who want a nickel and dime, not my clients. I don't like that. I don't enjoy that. I provide a ton of value. And if you don't see that, I'm not the right fit for you. So that's kind of how I pitch it. Again, not to scare people off, but it's just, I know my value. My time's valuable. It is what it is. In terms of when to hire an attorney, uh, you know, I'm dealing with a case right now with a right of first refusal. This is like a very simple, dumbed down example, where it's a commercial property. They're selling it for $2 million. They found a buyer. They did their own. I wasn't involved at this point. They had their own with the tenant, the seller, and the landlord had a one-line right of refusal, like written in on a one-page addendum. It said tenant shall have a right of first refusal. So long story short, the tenant's playing this game because there's no details in there. It's just nothing. So the tenant's playing this game of, yeah, we're going to exercise a right of first refusal. We'll buy it at 1.5. Well, that's not how it works. Okay, well, we'll buy it at 1.8 with terms. You carry a note. It's not how it works. They hired an attorney, they being the tenant. Attorney said, we're going to screw up your whole deal. We're going to blow it up. We're going to cloud title. We're going to file a lien. We're going to file a list pendants, blah, blah, blah. That's when they got me involved. And they said, can he do this? Is this legal? What are we going to do? And I'm like, well, here's my retainer. Pay me this retainer and I'll solve your problem. And they did. I like the very nice clients. I love them. And they're going to be clients of mine for a while. All I'm trying to say is we're going to do it right. I went in, I did the case law, I did the letter. They backed down. We're good. You know what the problem is? He just paid me probably 10 times what he would have paid me on the front end if he had me just draw up a good right of first refusal, maybe 20 times more, because that's a very simple thing. But the point is, it's an example that whatever you don't pay on the front end, you end up paying on the back end 5 and 10 and 20 times, right? So not having a simple clause in your agreement, if you're a wholesaler, not having the right protections in place, if you're doing fix and flips, not having, if you're working with a GC, or if you are a GC, like if you are taking money, not having one or two things in there could screw everything up and could cost you tens of thousands, whereas on the front end, it might have costed you a fraction of that. So I don't need to pitch myself, because I think if people are listening, they can understand who I am and the value I bring. And if you want that, reach out. But at the end of the day, it's never too early to bring on an attorney. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm not going to take your money. You don't need me. Go do this, this, and that. I'm not going to help. You don't need me right now. Call me when you put in your first offer. Call me when you da-da-da-da-da. Because there's no point in taking someone's money if you can't help them. That's a lose-lose situation. I don't feel good. They don't feel good. So I'll tell you if it's too early. I do that all the time, because guess what? You're going to come back to me every time, because I'm a trustworthy man, and I'm going to say, when it's time, I'll tell you, no, you need me, or you don't need me, but I'm being honest with you. Early on, better on. I get people all the time who tell me, I'm thinking about getting into real estate. What should I do? I say, you don't need to hire me yet. Go read this book, go do this, go watch this, go JV with somebody, go learn the game, and then come back to me, and then we'll work on stuff together. And they really appreciate that. And now those are some of my best clients because they know. So I'm not going to pitch everyone on this that's listening to say, you need to hire me. That's not the case. But think about it, and it's as your journey begins, and especially if you have a couple properties under your belt, may not be too soon to go talk to an attorney.
Yeah. So that is great explanation on that story about the one-liner, which ties into my next question and probably final question. How does having an attorney on your team actually increase an ROI or your ROI as an investor? Because I'm getting my BC license. I should be a BC in the next month and a half. I'm working on building, houses, or
Nice.
work on building houses. I have my real estate broker's license. I also have my mortgage license. So I am pretty well versed in all those fields. I do always see a value of an in-house attorney, especially for contractor. But how would that increase my ROI compared to, okay, I pay you your retainer and you'll answer my calls when I need you. But I know that there's other ways that you could help me besides, hey, what do I do now? Like preliminary contracts, etc., whatnot. Can you, expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Another good question, Lancelot. So the value we bring, some of it, when I tell you that story about the solar lien, that's easy, right? That's like, you can quantify how much value I had on that one phone call with that one client. It's not always that easy, because a lot of times the best things you do are the things you don't do, right? And the smartest decisions you make are not doing something or not moving forward. And so it's really impossible to quantify the value of a good attorney. Somebody once told me, not somebody, you hear it all the time, but it's like, you need a good attorney and you need a good tax person on your side as you scale, right? And the other one that's a little bit more funny is like, two people you never lie to: your doctor and your attorney, right? So I like that one. That one's always funny. But look, we're on your side. There's a reason we call ourselves counsel, right? Because we're there to counsel you. We're there to guide you. And so there's a couple intangible ways we can help you. Like I said, telling you not to go with this deal because we don't think these terms make sense. Hey, listen, I've seen this deal before. It doesn't make sense. Or I've seen a similar deal and it didn't work out. Hey, I know this party that you're trying to get into business with because they were recently sued by my friend, my partner, my law firm, right? Be careful. How do you quantify something like that? How do you quantify the fact that you need a loan and I represent 30 lenders and I can get you a rate better than anyone else can? How do you quantify the fact that I know which contractors have a good reputation and which contractors have a bad reputation in town? How do you quantify the fact that you could pick up the phone and call me if you're my client, and you're going to get an answer, if not right then within 24 hours, but probably by the end of the day, and we could talk through whatever you want to talk through. You can't put a number on it.
You can't put a number on it. Yeah, you can't put a number on it.
You can't put a number on it. Yeah, but go ahead.
Your net worth is your net worth.
100%.
As an attorney, you guys have the biggest network, I think. Like, people just off the top of my head in cities, you go in a city, you get a permit, you have issues with permit, the people there. You dealt with them, other counselors, other, contract, as you said, just a massive amount of people you meet through your business is money in itself. And that's what Tony talks about. Your network is your net worth, So that's
I think my favorite thing to do is start the group emails or the group chats. I've started 2 today alone. It's like, hey, Bishoy, can you help me find this? And I text that someone I have come to my, hey, do you have a capacity to help with this? Yes. Boom. Hey, can you help with this? Let me find out. Boom. So I've started 2 of those group chats in the past, since today to this morning. And so those are the things that like get me excited. I don't gain anything out of it. I don't ask for much back. I just keep me in mind if I can ever help you. And I love being a resource and a funnel for people to ask me questions and bouncing them in the right direction. It's fun. It's rewarding.
That's awesome. That was packed with a lot of legal gold. Big thanks to Bishoy Habib for breaking down how to protect your deals, your dollars, and your future. Whether you're flipping homes, building a portfolio, or just closing your first deal, legal protection isn't optional. It's essential. And Bishoy is the guy who gets it done. Follow him at Attorney Bishoy on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for consultation or more info. Visit levacylegal.com or reach out directly at bishoy@levacylegal.com. All this will be down in the comment sections. Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Roundtable, where the smart money meets the smarter moves. Catch you next time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, where we've unveiled the mysteries of real estate together. Remember, in this kingdom of possibilities, every dream home is just a discussion away. I can help your real estate dreams come true. Just call me at 786-449-7518. Until our next roundtable, may your ventures be prosperous and your homes be filled with love and joy. Farewell, fellow knights of real estate.